Listeners, we are back. It is the promotion party here at No Nay Never. The Clarets securing an immediate return to the Premier League via the automatic position. Currently in second place, the title all to play for, an emphatic victory at Turf Moor over Sheffield Utd in the biggest game of the season. The Clarets be back, baby. They'll be back. We are joined this week by regular panellists George Poole, Tom Whittaker. Charlotte Rigby is going to be making an appearance because what would a promotion podcast be without our very own Charlotte Rigby? And the team are in a buoyant mood. We're going to be looking back not just over that game on Bank Holiday Monday, but the whole season. Just how did Scott Parker mastermind a return to the Premier League? Listeners, buckle up. Let's go. Hello, George. How are you?
Sorry, I thought I had enough time to put my flag up then, but clearly not.
You know what? You're allowed. Listen, the podcast is full of chaos, and it has been for the best part of a decade, and if not longer. So I'm pretty sure we're allowed this to carry on. We'll come on to flags later on, but both of you got flags behind you, and I'm very pleased to see this. Mine's in the attic somewhere. I didn't bring mine down in time to record. But George, welcome to the podcast. You must be in a buoyant mood.
Yes, good evening. What a week, eh? It's been fantastic. I mean, even the wider area away from Burnley seems to have been in a buoyant mood ever since. I've been in Clitheroe the past couple of days, and every time I feature in a Burnley shirt, I keep getting stopped and people making comments. Oh, Premier League. It just seems to, it's given everyone such a lift. You know, it's such a source of pride, isn't it, to be back?
It definitely is. And Tom, welcome back. We dragged you out of your misery that you've been sulking in all season. You must be happy to be back.
Yeah, the last few months have been really good, hasn't it? It's got a lot better, and culminated in a fantastic evening on Monday night. I had a great time.
Excellent. I love this. Well, flags aside, Clarets, what are we going to cover this week? I think this is going to be a little bit of a reflection of the season as a whole and a bit of a look back as to just how Scott Parker managed to mastermind that return to the Premier League. We're going to have a look back on Monday and some specifics from the game and some particular performances, particularly Maxim Estev just casually dropping a 10 out of 10 performance in the biggest game of the season, as you do, and a few other things that we need to note as well. Then we're just going to look back on the squad, the team, how the season's developed, as Tom's already said. What did that, do we even remember what that first half looked like and how the second half's developed? How does this promotion compare to previous ones? And more significantly, what are our chances of promotion? So, George, I'm going to come to you first, my friend. The game itself, Sheffield United, as we expect they would do, came out of the blocks very, very quick. And it was not nervy. I don't think nervy is the right word, but it was a statement of intent from Sheffield United. And I think that was probably expected.
It was a fantastic game, I thought. It was one where you could tell there were quality in both sides, and both sides were very much some of the best sides in the division. But you could also tell the difference between ourselves and Sheffield United. I thought that they came and really played hoofball for a lot of the afternoon, which obviously plays to their strengths, whereas you could tell we were a lot better footballing outfit. I thought it was feisty. I thought the referee let a lot go, which I have no qualms with. It makes for a good game. And overall, I just thought it was a really entertaining contest. You got to half time and you thought, wow, it's just been really good to watch. You had a few standout performances from the Burnley side, which probably told in the end. And all told, I thought it was a really good watch and great to obviously come out on the right side, and it just made for a fantastic afternoon.
Yeah, it very much did. And Tom, I mean, from our perspective, we managed to ride that early pressure, I think, from Sheffield United. And it didn't really last that long. It was probably only a good 10, 15 minutes at the start of the game before that Burnley side very much settled into what they wanted to do and how they wanted to play the game. And I thought from that moment on, we had Sheffield United chasing the game. We were controlling the pace and the flow and what was going to happen. Do you think that's a fair assessment, or did you see it differently?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think particularly the first few minutes when you saw they've got two up front on the team sheet, you think, we know what's going to happen here. You're not playing Kiefer Moore because he's got fantastic first touch or dribbling ability or anything like that. You're playing him because you want someone to beat the ball long to, and that's what they did. And it caused us a few problems early on, but I think, as George said, we just looked the better football inside. We were able to dictate the flow of the game. I think, as George said as well, the ref let a lot go, which helped. And I think once we got our noses in front, it was really hard to see. Excuse me, sorry, Sheffield United getting 2 goals from there. I think they were trying to hit us on the counter, and Esteve was just mopping everything up, especially in that first half. And then the second, I really enjoyed the first half, as George said, but I didn't rate the second half probably not from a neutral point of view. But we were so good in that second half. We just soaked everything up. We could have played till Christmas, and they wouldn't have got a shot on target, let alone scored. So I think we really saw both sides of what we're good at in that game. And yeah, I mean, I was pretty confident before the game, and I was never nervous or anything, never in doubt throughout the 90 minutes.
Well, let's talk about this guy to start off with then George. I mean, Esteve's probably going to get our player of the season. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. Has been a class above other championship defences this season. And as I said in the opening, just casually dropped himself in there, an absolute 10 out of 10 performance on the night. It started relatively early. I think there was a rare misstep from CJ early on. He just let the ball bounce over the wrong side of him, wrong-footed himself. And Esteve just came in and scooped it up and really, really helped out his defence. And then there were some incredible tackles in that performance as well. I mean, he's a talent that I don't think we've seen at this level before.
Yeah, I'd argue he's very much on par with James Tarkowski. I think both of those defenders have got very different qualities about them, but are both a step above this level. I mean, you saw on Monday, like you mentioned, a couple of missteps from Egan Riley, from Perez. I think you saw against quite a tall Sheffield United backline the weaknesses of Egan Riley, in that he's not a tall lad. I know that all too well. I struggle against 6'2" attackers and all. And on the moments where Egan Riley was exposed, Esteve was there to mop up, and it was in his one-on-ones, in the sort of 2-on-1 battles as well. Esteve always came out on top, and I think in Esteve you've got a player that can obviously play for maybe a top 10 Premier League side, and I'm quite optimistic that he'll stay in the summer, because in every interview he gives, he's very humble, and it's not, you can tell it's not a fake humble. It's a humble in that he probably doesn't realise how good he actually is, and he feels very privileged to sort of be able to cut his teeth playing for Burnley, which is a positive for us. So yeah, it was one of his best games of the season, and what a moment to produce that kind of performance.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that at the beginning of the season, haven't we, Tom? We talked about, whilst the quality of the squad probably declined slightly in terms of ability from that Premier League side to the side that we started with at the beginning of the season, what we were left with was a group of players who clearly really wanted to play for the shirt, wanted to be here at Turf. We'll come on to later on the standard of the dressing room and the togetherness of the squad. But for me, Esteve really epitomises that it's we've got players who are playing for the badge. Do you think from that perspective that defence can, together as a unit, do well in the Premier League, or is it going to have to be ripped up? So I'm saying here, let's pretend nobody else comes in for them. Let's pretend that we keep everybody. So we've got a back five. We've got Trafford. We've got CJ and Esteve in the middle. We've got Humphreys on the left and Connor Roberts on the right. Like, what standard of defence? Because that's the first thing, Tom, that we're going to get talked about because of the defensive record this year. It's the one thing that the news cycle is going to come on to all the time next season. How does that back five stand in line for a Premier League campaign?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing to say is it's not just the back five. I think Parker spoke about it today in his pre-match press conference for QPR. It's the way the whole team's set up. The back five get a lot of protection. All the front players are tracking back. There's only probably really Edwards in the team who's kind of allowed to have a free roll and not really put a shift in the way the other players are. So that definitely helps him. And I think that's a mentality that's took us up, and would be crazy to go away from that in the Premier League, I think. So I think that's the first thing to say. If these lads are going to get protection, they're going to get a lot more protection than the back five did 2 years ago when we were in the Premier League. So that's that's going to help them all. As individual players, I think you're right. I think Esteve is obviously going to be comfortable at that level. I think probably what the problems are going to be the physicality. And George mentioned obviously Egan Riley being a bit on the short side for a centre half. I think Roberts is probably a bit slight as well for a Premier League defender. And it's one thing that you really notice when you look at some of these teams. When you saw like Crystal Palace last night, some of the players they've got, the physicality of someone like Mateta, for example. We haven't really come up against many players like that in the Championship this season, I don't think. And that's going to be a worry. And I think especially for Egan Riley, I think that I'd be interested to see how he gets on. I'm not saying he'll definitely get bullied every week and he won't be an asset, but I would be worried about that. And then the other thing, and I know you said, let's imagine that we keep this back five together, but I think we're going to struggle to. My gut tells me that Esteve will stay at least another year. My gut tells me that Egan Riley might sign a new deal now that we're up, but I can't see Trafford being here. There's been rumours about Newcastle swirling around, basically since we signed him, haven't there? And while I think his physicality has improved massively, Joe Hart was talking about it actually on 5 Live the other day, saying he looks a different, physically he's a different specimen to what he was 2 years ago, and he looks ready for the level now. But I think with how good he is, combined with the fact that he now does look ready for that level, I can see him moving on.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a big piece of the puzzle what keeper we bring in to replace him as well. That's going to be and as I said, I know your question, I've taken your question a bit of a different way there, but that would be probably my biggest worry, I think, is who we're going to have in nets. Are they going to do something stupid like they did 2 years ago, where they're going to get a young lad who needs time to develop, or are they going to throw someone in who's got a bit more experience? And I'd like to think Parker will be, and perhaps the lessons of 2 years ago as well for some of the people in the boardroom, but I'd like to think they would go for a bit more experience this time.
Yeah. It feels like, Tom, it just feels like, just pausing on there for a second, it just feels like it to me. It feels like the club is in a completely different place to the one it was a year ago. It just 2 years ago, sorry, when it first went up. It feels like the board, and it just feels to me, Scott Parker's the gel there is not a Vincent Kompany character. He's not an ego. He's very thoughtful. He's very calculated in what he does, and he does things very slowly. And whilst that can drive us absolutely mad in terms of football, and what we like as irrational fans, and we get there feels to me like there's a calmness about the club that we will do things differently than we did under Kompany. I think it just feels that way. So yeah, please have the floor back.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I hope that's true. I think there's still obviously kind of club signings being made around, like over Scott Parker's head. I think even the transfer window, like I don't think Sonner was Parker's choice. I don't think that lad from Ajax was Parker's choice, and obviously neither of them are really featured. So that's a worry if the club says, look, actually we want this.
Who have I forgotten about here? Which lad from Ajax? Who have I forgotten about here?
Striker, is he called Balin?
He's
been on the bench a few times.
Legit forgot all about him. Absolutely forgot he existed. So yes. Yeah. Happy promotion, sir. Well done.
I'd be a bit worried if the club said to Parker, look, Trafford's going in, but you're not having Nick Pope or something to replace him. You're having this 20-year-old from Ajax that we think is going to be brilliant in a few years. But that, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Just the other person that I was going to mention there was Joe Worrell. He looked a really good signing for the Championship. I think he's probably had a bit of an influence behind, in the dressing room and kind of behind the scenes that we don't really see. I'd be interested to see, if Egan Riley got an injury or something, or if we had to play Worrell a few games next season. I know he's not always looked amazing in the games that he's played. It's difficult in the cup teams. It's difficult when you're in and out. But, I think there's a player there if he got a run. And I think he'd have some of the attributes. He's not got the pace, and you think maybe Steph can bail him out a little bit there. But I think in terms of the physicality, that kind of thing, he might end up being a good asset for us in the Premier League as well.
Jordan Bayer's going to be back in August. Where does he fit into this?
He won't be back. He won't be back ready to play. Let's be honest.
They're saying he's going to be back for August.
Yeah.
Evan Trezor will be back by August.
Well, the latter we can tackle another time, but but it's hard to expect that of him. Obviously, to go straight into playing games. He may well be back training fully in August, and maybe he'll have a pot to play.
No, he's training fully now. He's going to be back ready to play in August. I've heard.
Yeah, sure he is. Yeah. We'll see when that happens.
We've had different. Hang
No,
on, can we have?
I just don't. You know,
Rumors here.
I just don't believe it. You know, he's had such a horrible time with injuries to pin any hopes on him being a starting centre back or anything come August. I think is doolally, to be honest. So I think, you know, same as Tom, I think Worrell will really be quite an asset in the Premier League. And as Tom rightly pointed out, maybe his pace, etc., isn't there, but his physicality is a lot more of a presence than Egan Riley. And I think in our defence, you probably see the vulnerabilities when we have attacking corners. I mean, when was the last time we even looked like scoring from a corner, winning a header, you know, getting a shot on target from a corner? I can't remember. And that points to their lack of, you know, physicality. And I think that's something that might be exposed in the Premier League. For me, I think if someone like a Taylor Howard-Bellis came up this summer, and it sounds like he's going to leave Southampton, I wouldn't be turning my nose up at that. You know,
would you have him back?
Yeah, I do think we need to improve on Egan Riley, to be honest, at right centre back.
Controversial comments, George Poole. I'm going to leave that hanging for a while and come back. George, while you're on here, then you've just put in the chat box, we're picking up on Tom's point about the keeper. You've thrown Kasper Schmeichel's name in the mix. Please explain yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just it's an inspired choice by myself. I'm joking.
If you say so yourself, you know. Like,
I watched the interview with him on the Overlap the other month, and it was honestly one of the best episodes I've watched. He's such an incredibly intelligent guy. He speaks so well. He's got such a presence about him. He spoke very highly of, obviously, his time at Leicester, and he just seems like a man who, a bit like his dad, really left England, and he's almost looking back thinking he left too soon. He made that move from Leicester to, was it Nice? And he says, I don't know why I left the Premier League. You know, at that point, I really shouldn't have. He's gone up to Celtic, obviously. He's performed well in Celtic. They play in European competition. And if we're going to lose Trafford this summer, which is obviously it's a strong possibility, I think bringing in an experienced keeper, we could do worse than that. I think, you know, someone like a Nick Pope's completely out of our target, really, to be honest. I think he should still be playing top 8 football if Newcastle move on. I think, you know, the heart in me would love.
We're going to be in the top 8 next year, George.
Maybe in 2 years' time, or when we get Champions League football, but yeah, not yet. The heartstrings might want a Tom Heaton back. I'm not completely against that. I mean, he's not played a lot of football in the last few years, but you don't sit, you know, second and third choice at United for nothing. You know, they're quite intelligent with their goalkeeping department in the reserves anyway. But yeah, I just think Kasper Schmeichel's a shout, but it's one of those bridges that we don't really need to cross yet, is it? While we bask in the glory of promotion over Sheffield United.
I know. I wanted this week's podcast to have some kind of specific analysis in it, rather than us all just going like, "Hey, we're back." But there you go. Okay, going back to you then, Tom, and picking back up on before we finish off on Monday's game. The man of the hour, of course, captain Josh Brownhill, who every year we have him in the Championship, just proves to be a ridiculous player for us and a really, really important character. Stepped up this year to be club captain and delivered the goods again on Monday. It's looking increasingly like this is going to be the last season that we're going to have Brownhill. It looks like he's going to leave at the end of the summer if reports of a lack of a contract remain persistent. I guess from your perspective, where does Josh Brownhill now sit in terms of Premier League versus Championship ability, and where is now the right time for us to part company with him?
Yeah, it's kind of a shame actually, because I think the last couple of times we've been in the Prem, he's looked. I think it's kind of similar to Roberts. He's one of these kind of players. He's too good for the Championship, but not good enough for the Premier League. But I think this has been his best season for us, and not just in terms of obviously the headlines of the output, grabbing the goals, that kind of thing. But I think he's more effective playing where he's playing, kind of behind the centre forward. And I think Park is probably getting more out of him than Dyche or company did. I think he's more of a Parker player than he is for either of the other two. And it's kind of a shame that it looks like he's going to go when potentially next year would have been his best year for us in the Premier League, if that makes sense, with a bit more of a defined role. Got the captain's armband. I'd like to see him stay, and probably if you'd have asked me 12 months ago, I'd have said I'm not 100% sure he's good enough for the Premier League, and if he leaves, I won't be devastated. But I think I mentioned in our chat the other day, I think every season ALK have owned us, the top scorer has gone to Chris Wood, Nathan Teller, Jakob Brun-Larsen last year, although obviously it wasn't a high bar to reach. But I think it would be a shame to do that again. And I'd like to keep as much of the team together as possible. And yeah, if it was me, I'd be offering him good terms to stay for a couple more years. But the age that he is, he's probably got one more big contract left in him. And you know, if he goes and gets good money elsewhere, he'll be going with everyone's thanks and best wishes. I'm sure he's had a fantastic season. And as you say, just kind of epitomised it really, that he was the man to step up, not only with the winning goals on Monday, but the winning goal at Watford as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a funny one, really. And I guess from my perspective, I don't know. I'm a really funny thing with things like this. I always get people like take the mickey out of me, particularly family members. But the club captaincy role is really important to me, and it always has been. So I'm already looking. I'm like, well, who takes over? Like, who's the club captain? And I suspect probably Steve will get it. I would suspect. I'm not always a fan of your centre half being the captain. I much prefer it being in. I definitely don't like keepers having it. I prefer a good midfielder general to have the captain's armband. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty weird one. We'll come on towards the end of the podcast about how we look to shape the side next season. So let's save that for them. But George, I'm going to finish off on Monday's game. I think it didn't surprise me that we conceded a goal. Still, right now, no team scored more than 2 goals against us, which is insane, by the way, in the league. One of the things that particularly struck me about Monday was the tactical battle on the bench. Now, Chris Wilder's no mug here. He's a clever manager. He doesn't necessarily do things the sexy, jazzy way, but he definitely has got that Sheffield United side this season, finding ways to win. He can manipulate games very easily. Everything that Sheffield United tried on Monday, every single tweak in tactics or whatever it was, didn't work. You know, we were able to neutralise them straight away. We talked about this in our group chat. Like, how important was that? Because we've sometimes been critical of Scott Parker in terms of his ability to proactively change a game. Not on Monday, though.
No, they made 5 changes, didn't they, throughout the second half, and not one, I thought, influenced the game for them in a positive way. Probably a cautionary tale thrown in there with Ryan Brewster, you know, was brought on for them. Now, 3 years ago, they spent a lot of money on him, and he was this, you know, quite highly touted young player, and he's just turned out to be nowhere near what people thought he would be. You know, he came on Monday, and I didn't even notice him. But yeah, going to your wider point, 5 subs, not one of them made a positive impact for Sheffield United, whereas I thought for us, our substitutions were more pointed, but more effective. You know, Josh Laurent came on at just after the hour mark. How he's played such a huge role this season. As soon as he came onto the pitch, you could see him marshalling everybody else around. You know, you can tell he's got that captaincy streak in him from when he was the captain at Stoke City. And I think he's one of those unsung heroes that will be fondly remembered for this season, because whilst he's not started probably the majority of games, or not every game, let's say, he's always seems to have had an impact. He's not the best technically on the ball, but the way he sort of manages the midfield, the way he operates off the ball is so important. But yeah, I thought Scott Parker got the better of Wilder on Monday. You know, aided by probably better players, better coach players. We've not even mentioned him yet, but Hannibal was...
Oh, yeah, of course.
I think Hannibal was very much on a par with Esteve for man of the match. And that's saying something when you've got someone like Josh Brownhill who scored 2 goals. But I thought Hannibal it was night and day from when we saw him early in the season. Remember, he got that sending off, and we'd do podcasts and say, is he a liability? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we did. We were concerned.
In the biggest game of the season on Monday, he absolutely ran the show. I mean, he still had his fantastic trait of being a nuisance, and he was winding the opposition up, and he knew exactly what he's doing. He was doing it at the right moments. He was doing it in a clever way so that the referee couldn't pick Hannibal up on anything, because he wasn't doing anything against the rules of the game.
Yeah.
But he had the Sheffield United players on strings. When he had the ball, he was manoeuvring it really smartly, getting us up the pitch. He was pressing off the front. He's always seems to be the trigger for the press. that Tom mentioned earlier, that's so effective in our defensive side of the game. So yeah, I think through the tactics of Parker, through the way he rebuffed Chris Wilder, and through the excellent individual performances, you just had a performance that, okay, in the second half it wasn't glitz and glamour, but it was so effective. I mean, not once did they look like equalising, and in such a high profile game, that says a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Where did you, I guess, from your perspective, Tom, obviously the shape of the team was really well set up. I thought Edwards had one of his better games. Fleming, I thought, was pretty handy. He's not always put in a spectacular performance this season. It just felt to me, just to summarise that performance, it just felt to me that everything clicked with that side. It was like that was the peak on Monday night. It's like the whole season led to that moment. Parker had got them set up well, the right player in the right position, knowing exactly what they needed to do, and nobody put in a poor performance. It was just, that was it. It was like masterminded to that moment that would sink us promotion. You think that's a good analysis?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's not just the Sheffield United game where it's felt like that. It's almost been like that for the last couple of months now. We've just since the Portsmouth game, we've just cruised, haven't we? We dropped maybe 6 points in the last 2-3 months, something like that, 3 draws, and we something's clicked, especially with Edwards coming in. But we look superior to everyone we play in all aspects. We're so much better than everyone else in the league defensively, and then we've added goals to it now as well. And I said to you at the start, I've been on a few games on the turf in recent years where I've been sick as shit before. I remember the Newcastle game when we got relegated. I was so nervous that day, but I didn't have any nerves whatsoever going into Sheffield.
No, I didn't.
The way we're playing, the way we're set up, we've found something that works. And and as you say, it's a nice way to get promoted. I mean, I'm sure Leeds were all very happy. Sat in the stand a few hours after the game, watching it on telly and watching it come in. But there's no better way to get promoted than doing it off your own steam at your home ground. It was, and like you say, to win against one of your biggest promotion rivals in such a comprehensive and deserved way. Fantastic feeling.
Yeah. And 11 years to the day since we did it against Wigan as well at home, which was a nice.
Was it? Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
4 promotions for Ashley Barnes in Burnley colours. 4 promotions. I mean, that's
crazy.
Astounding.
Yeah, it is. I think it's. I think what Tom's just said there is really right. It definitely feels to me like over the last 48 hours, Burnley have dominated the news headlines with regards to promotion. Maybe it's just the algorithms across the different media outlets work, and I've just been pushed Burnley things, but it just hasn't felt like there's been the same amount of material and content out there on Leeds than there has on Burnley, because we were the ones that did it while we were playing. We got the job done. They'd all gone home. Everybody was at home, and they were obviously watching it together. But it definitely feels like that has helped. Okay, well, before we move on to have a look at the wider season, no promotion party at Nona Never Towers would be complete without our very own Charlotte Rigby, who has joined us in an earlier recording than I sat down with her about to tell us just what she thought of Monday night and what promotion means to her. So let's hear from our darling Riggers.
After a fantastic win on Monday, the Clarets have sealed their spot in the Premier League for the 2025-26 season, with Josh Brownhill scoring the winning goal from the penalty spot, and what a penalty it was to seal promotion. I'm so glad he had such a part to play on Monday. He is our current top goal scorer. He's had a huge impact on our season so far, and it was really nice to see him be the guy that gets the goal. Obviously, his future is a little bit uncertain currently. Some sources are saying that he's definitely staying, whereas others seem to think he's pretty much gone. It'd be nice to see him as part of the Claret and Blue team starting that Premier League season, but we all know how football is. I also enjoyed seeing Ashley Barnes' reaction to that penalty. He was very much one of the fans in that moment, because I feel like he's had such an important part to play over this last half a season since he joined us in January. He's obviously not had a huge impact on the playing playing side of things, but he seems to be a massive motivation and a huge persona to have in the dressing room, and the impact he's had on the playing team and the togetherness of the squad is unmatched. I'm really hoping that there is somewhere in the team or in the squad it's some role for him to play, even if it's not a playing role, over the next few seasons, to keep him at Burnley and really have that huge impact that he really can have as a player, as a man and as a personality. I'm very hopeful that our defensive record and our better defensive setup this time round means that next time come the end of the Premier League, we're going to be in a better position than we were last time. Obviously, that's very much depends on whether we can keep those players that have been huge in our defensive record. CJ Egan-Riley still needs to put pen to paper on that respect, and Esteve has been fantastic. I can imagine we'll be having a few bids for him before the Premier League season starts. Hopefully his price is very high and no one can quite match it, meaning he is a Clarets player at the start of next season. I feel like those two will have a huge impact if we are able to keep them. But not too much looking forward to the Premier League season at the moment. Let's enjoy promotion. Let's go out for these last 2 games, get the job done, and let's win the league.
Okay, so it has been a long season, Tom. There have been times this season where we've been frustrated, where we've been miserable, where we've really not enjoyed our season. And we've spent a significant amount of time this season just expecting that playoffs was it for us. It felt like we were naturally the third best side in the season. There's an inexplicable turn of events a couple of weeks ago where Sheffield United, just out of absolute nowhere, lost 3 games in 1 week, which is it's just suicide. You cannot do that when it comes to a promotion push. That this league will punish you that way. So I think in some respects there's an element of good fortune. If Sheffield United had maintained their consistency, we probably would have been in the playoffs, because that would have carried on, and I think we'd have very much been left to rue out the chances that we didn't take at the beginning of the season. But we touched about it earlier on. The second half of the season, since the January transfer window, has been a complete culture shift, both on the pitch and off the pitch. Like, what has Scott Parker masterminded here? How can you summarise this?
I think probably if we had Scott here, and I'm sure I speak for us all and say you're very welcome to come on anytime, Scott. I think he might be saying, well, I always knew this was going to happen. There was a lot of turnover in the summer. I had to start laying some foundations very quickly and kind of on the job, as it were. Didn't get the chance to do it in pre-season because of how much the squad changed, and started with the defence. And someone actually mentioned to me the other day about how Sean Dyche's first kind of 6 months that he had in charge, the first kind of full part season, was quite similar in a lot of ways. It wasn't very watchable, but we got some results and we got the job done. And then obviously we kicked on massively. And it's probably quite a good analogy. I think perhaps the only difference and the reason that it's not felt, the reason that perhaps we've not had quite as much patience with it is that it's a different club now. The players that we've got, we've been talking about Esteve cost £15 million, which is more than probably a lot of Championship clubs have spent on the squads. There's expectation and some would say entitlement that's there that wasn't there at that time, obviously because of how much the club's grown since. And that's perhaps why it's felt like such a shift and such a big change. But I think, again, if Parker was here, he'd probably say, it's quite, to borrow a Dyche, isn't fine margins. We've had a lot of games, particularly in the first half of the season, where we've controlled the game pretty effectively, but we've drawn 0-0. And, probably 3 or 4 of those if we'd nicked an early goal. And then think of the Plymouth game, for example, where we got kind of an early penalty. We won it 1-0. Again, it wasn't a good watch, but you come off feeling a lot better because you've won the game. And one thing we've been fantastic at all seasons is if we get a lead, we don't relinquish it. I think Sheffield United were only the second team that have actually scored an equaliser against us this season. So I don't know if it's been a massive shift, a massive sea change since Edwards came in. I think perhaps he was a bit of a missing piece of the puzzle. Just added another dimension to our attack. It's meant that Anthony has improved because he's got more space now. There's 2-3 men on Edwards every game. Just that little bit of quality that unlocks teams. And, you know, the Sheffield Wednesday game at home, we're under the cosh. We could have quite easily been behind in that game. Suddenly a little piece of magic from Edwards. We're 1-0 up. We go on to win the game 4-0. And it's racking those goals in just gives you a bit more of a feel-good factor, doesn't it? And you know, I certainly hold my hands up and say I was quite probably on the more negative end of the spectrum, probably in the first few months. It's nothing to do with the results necessarily. I've said on here before, from an outside point of view, the results we were getting, our place in the table, you'd be churlish to complain. I just didn't enjoy watching it, and that was the long and short of it for me. But even within that, you know, we've had 5-0 wins, 5-0 away at Plymouth. That was a fantastic night in January before Edwards came in. You know, and Derby wins. We've had a brilliant season, and I think the last 3 months it has all come together and it has all clicked. But I don't want it. And as I say, I've been quite negative about the season up till then, and I've probably not enjoyed it as much as a lot have. But let's not do it down to the point where we're suggesting it's been a kind of miraculous overhaul and we've suddenly become miles better, because I don't think we have. I think we've just made enough tweaks to come out on the right side of things. The football's definitely improved. It's been better to watch, but
yeah, it has.
The last 3 months have been brilliant. It's been a fantastic season overall.
Good. Yeah. So George, your perspective, you've been very much on the other side of this. You quite enjoyed the early parts of the season, that division. You weren't as concerned with the football, particularly the kind of football that Parker wanted to play and the defensive masterclass. What's been the season roundup for you on that perspective?
I think Tom hit the nail on the head when he mentioned the sort of puzzle metaphor. I think at the start of the season, you had the red herring of the first two games, which I think is important to mention, where you had a side that was probably title winning quality. Say we'd have kept that side from the first 2 games through the rest of the season, you know, that Parker had been able to work on through pre-season, really good quality in there. The sort of quality where if you're a relegated side and managed to hold on to quite a lot of your squad on the proviso that, you know, you're going to go straight back up and then you're going to reap the financial rewards of the Premier League, you've got a title winning squad there. Now, obviously, when it came to that Sunderland game in the third game of the season, it all came out in the wash, didn't it? You know, we had many players out the door. The likes of Goodmanson had left that week. Vegos was about to leave. You know, there was other players who were sort of about to leave or hadn't left yet, like a Vitinho. And against Sunderland, you really saw a side that was crippled really. So I think for me, the first half of the season goes from, let's say Sunderland to January, where Parker did a good job of building a solid base, of hitting across a system where the defence was probably overly protected. You know, you had someone in Egan Riley who wasn't rated both inside and outside of the club as a starting Championship centre-half. And you had somebody in sort of Lucas Perez, new to the league. And that defence was really overprotected. And we were really set up to protect that defence first and foremost. And that reaped its rewards in the clean sheets and the way we managed to grind out results. But on the flip side, it was passive to watch and it wasn't very entertaining. You know, there was a lot of games there where we should have won, but we drew. You know, we drew too many games that first half of the season.
Yeah, we did.
But you left yourself with a good shout going into the second half of the season. And I always sort of felt there was a natural progression of the team. And I sort of tried to trust in that. Obviously, a lot of work happens on the training ground, doesn't it? And it doesn't happen overnight. And I think through the winter months, you started to see sort of things clicking into place, a few ways of attacking where you could see the work had happened on the training ground. But yeah, as Tom said, the missing piece of the puzzle was found in January. You know, Brownhill said it himself on his interview this week with the I Had Trials Once podcast, where he said bringing Edwards in January was that final piece of the puzzle. You know, that I think for many other teams, you get these kind of pieces in the summer because you spend the money and you probably go out on a limb and maybe risk it and roll the ball in the summer. I mean, you think back now and you think if Scott Parker had Edwards for the entire season, I've no doubt we'd be champions. But we get that missing piece in January and he hit the ground running. He was fantastic up until the last few games where he's been off the boil a little bit. I thought he was better against Sheffield United, but it's more than him as a player. It's him as a it's him as a pedigree, his reputation. He takes so much attention away from the other players on the pitch that it's freed up Anthony. Anthony's been a man changed since Edwards has come into the team. So it really has all fallen into place. And as you both said all podcast, these last few months, we have earned promotion at a canter. And yeah, you can look back with a few gripes thinking, if buts and maybes of the draws in the first half of the season, but if buts and maybes don't make a good podcast, do they? So as we sit here, level on points with Leeds, I think we can be optimistic of going into these last two games and getting 6 points and setting ourselves up to hopefully capitalise if Leeds mess up.
What do you think our chances are of the title, Tom? We've got QPR and Millwall, two sides, nothing to play for, one away, one at home. Leeds have got the trickier of the two fixtures. They've got to play Bristol City, who trying to cement their position in the playoffs, which is still very much up and down at the moment. And depending on how results go this weekend, potentially playing a Plymouth side who are Plymouth. Which one is it? Plymouth.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it is. My God, I'm so sorry, fans. I got myself in a muddle then. Plymouth and Portsmouth fans. They're playing Plymouth, who may very well be absolutely fighting for their lives to try and get themselves to safety, and who have at times this season shown that they can beat teams that they shouldn't be beating. So from your perspective, where are you putting our chances of a title?
I'd say probably about 50-50. I find it really difficult to call because it really depends on the attitude of both sets of players, of both managers. I think if you'd have asked all of us a month ago, we'd have said we're not that bothered about winning the title as long as we get automatically promoted, and it's kind of something that you can enjoy thinking about now that we know we've done it with 2 games to spare. In terms of the fixtures, we've got QPR on Saturday, we've got nothing to play for. And then Millwall, who potentially could have a shout at the playoffs, but I have a suspicion they'll be out of it by then. And then for Leeds, they've got Bristol City, who need the points, and then Plymouth, who again I suspect will probably be out of it by the final day. So probably in terms of the difficulty of the fixtures, Leeds are harder than ours because I think they've got at least one team who's going to have something to play for. But if Leeds are serious about winning the title, they can turn up and beat both of those teams, no problem. And they've got the advantage because they've got the goal difference at the minute. And I think that's why most bookies would put them as favourites. If they're not bothered and we are, then we're going to have a good chance. If they're even kind of 5-10% off it, then Bristol City have got a good chance, I think, of taking something off them. We're playing on Saturday and they've got to wait till the Monday as well. So if we do win at Loftus Road on Saturday, then that puts the ball in their court, and then it really does depend how bothered they are, I think. So it's difficult to call. I think it really depends on something that you can't really measure, which is how much either Burnley or Leeds are going to be on the beach for the last 2 games. And I will say now, I know a month ago we were all saying not that bothered about the title. Still the case, it would be great to win it, but it won't break my heart if Leeds turn up and win the next 2 games.
Yeah, no, I think I'm there as well. I think the relief of getting automatic promotion and not having to be in those playoffs has been a bit more profound than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. George, this gentleman, Scott Parker, absolute masterclass in getting out of the Championship. He's going to be, his stock in terms of Championship football is going to be very, very, very high from now on, but not had the best of times in the Premier League. How do you rate Parker's? And we'll come into this a little bit more in depth in future podcasts as we prepare for next season. But your gut reaction now that promotion has been secured and seeing what he's done this season, how do you expect him to perform next season?
I'm really looking forward to the Premier League because I think it'll serve as a complete opposite to the last time we were in the Premier League, in that I think we all sat here 2 years ago and we were really looking forward to the Premier League under company because completely understandably at the time we'd absolutely steamrolled the Championship. Even though you've got a young manager in company who seemed to be on the rise and always swell. We learnt our lesson, didn't we? In that we had a manager there who put himself ahead of the club, who got the recruitment policy completely wrong, and we were a laughing stock for the majority of that Premier League season. The club can come out and Vincent Kompany can come out and Craig Bellamy can come out and say all they want that we were better in the second half of that season. But the points don't lie. We weren't better. We weren't better. We would have still gone down, you know, if that second half of the season had been repeated over the full season. We weren't good enough. Under Parker, I'm filled with a lot more optimism because I think we'll get back to basics and get back to what a promoted team should do, in that they should be hard to beat. They should make it difficult for the opposition coming to their home ground. They should try and nick games and stay in games and pick up points when it might be easy to throw them away. So I think for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing us under Parker in the Premier League. I don't think he's been given a fair crack at the whip in the top flight yet, and I think he'll
that's a good point.
I think he'll have a lot to prove. Obviously, the first time he went up with Fulham, they didn't stay up. With Fulham, he was a young manager then. I mean, when we first went up with Dyche, we didn't stay up first time round. Then at Bournemouth, obviously everything just went pear-shaped at Bournemouth behind the scenes. But he had 5 or 6 games in the Premier League, so you can't even really judge him on that. If it wasn't for the Liverpool battering, they weren't actually doing that badly, Bournemouth. They picked up a couple of good results at that start of the season. So for me, it's a clean slate for Parker. You've seen how motivated he has been to prove himself as a championship manager again this past season. How emotional he was after the game and pointing to his own, I guess, struggles and probably indicated, his sort of falling out of love with the game in his year off after the Club Brugge experience, where again, problems behind the scenes there. So I think in Parker, you've got someone who'll be so motivated, who will prioritise Burnley Football Club ahead of anything to do with himself. And for me, that's why we're well set up to have a good crack at it. Are we going to survive comfortably? I doubt it. But are we going to have a really good go and make ourselves difficult to beat? I think so. And if you've got that connection with Parker, you've got that connection with the players, you're optimistic as a fan and you care. Yeah. And even if we end up falling short, you're grateful for the experience and for what they've given.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you've touched on there, George, the thing that we've seen over the last 48 hours with all of the content that's come out following promotion, the togetherness of that squad and the way that the players clearly feel about Parker. There are no dressing room concerns in this squad. He has managed them so well. He has earned their respect. He's given them respect. He's made the players feel respected, and they would run through brick walls for each other and for their manager. So that is completely different to the Premier League season under Company started badly and never recovered. He was already telling players they weren't good enough. He managed that dressing room terribly. It became very, very toxic. A big thing for me as well, and I know I'm a little bit of a prude when it comes to things like this, but it's been really, really lovely watching all of the dressing room footage this season and having just not every other word be the F word, which is what we got under Company. And it got I know it sounds ridiculous, and I accept criticism for being a bit of a wimp with this. But when we watched Mission to Burnley and I was watching it was like I couldn't watch it, and it was just it's not nice. It's so much more articulate. It's so much more. He can express himself in a much more empathy. How does that empathy? With empathy. I don't know what the other word is.
Come on, Natalie.
Empathy.
Parker replaces the F word with lads. Lads. He does.
Lads. Oh, lads. Yeah, I love it. I do love it.
What you've done for this season.
That has got to stand us in good stead. It's got to be better. Okay, let's finish off then. Tom, quick fire question before we go, because we're going to come back to this much more in the next 2 podcasts. So I'm conscious of not letting this one. We could literally talk for 2 hours right now, and I'm conscious of not letting this go too far. How does this promotion for you? What are you looking at there? What are you staring at? It's just a promotion picture.
I'm trying to find myself. Sorry.
There, yeah, I can see. I'm just below the O in McElroy there. I can just see myself.
Oh, there you go. Are we done? Can we carry on with the podcast?
Yeah,
I'll literally send you the picture after this, and you can have a look for yourselves. But can we, any chance of carrying on with the podcast? That'd be great. Tom, quick fire round to finish us off? How does this promotion to the Premier League compare to others for you? Where does this sit?
Yeah, to be honest, it's always going to be hard for me to beat 2008-09 and 2013-14 just because they were unexpected. There's always going to be a level of expecting to get promoted when you've just come back down and the parachute payments are how they are from now on. So it's not top two for me. I think probably the company one's the better of the two title wins. Let's see if we win the league. Come back to me if we win the league, and I'll let you know whether it's the second worst or the worst. But it's a nice problem to have, isn't it?
It is
if
a nice
your
problem.
promotion is a 33 unbeaten run, then
yeah,
you're doing
exactly.
all right.
Yeah, I'll slot in the middle of this before we finish off with George then. I think I would agree with that. I think the unexpected ones, for me, the playoff final at Wembley will always be the best, because that was back when the fairy tale was still alive and was just the first one we did, and it was against all the odds, and that was just an incredible. Also against Sheffield United, they do like to get us promoted to the Premier League. Bless them, they're a very charitable club that way. And I agree with you for the Daesh years that were unexpected. I'm always going to be torn with the company promotion because we won the league at Ewood, and I don't see how that will ever not be my most greatest moment in football ever. But this, for me, the promotion ranks above the company one for me, because we were just a ridiculous side in that company season. So we were always going to win the league by a long way. We were always going to get promoted. So it almost became not a tick box in that sense, but it almost came an event, an inevitability by the end of it. This one for me, we've had to graft all the way through. We had a slow start, some of it our own doing, well, all of it our own doing, and it's a group of players who've really earned this. So I'm going to rank it. I'm going to put it in higher up than those. George, back to you.
Probably my fourth favourite of the five. The company one's probably bottom, just because, like you say, it was out of cancer. It was honestly like boring at times. We were just far too good, and also the football we played was boring. It doesn't entertain me at all. That tippy tappy nonsense. Not to go Sam Allardyce on you, but yeah, it's not entertaining. So that was my least favourite. I wasn't at Ewood because I wasn't looking up in the ballot. So like, yeah, it was great celebrating in my front room in Bath, but it wasn't exactly the same. Yeah, I think all the ones under the Daesh were I preferred. The playoff final obviously was incredible day as well. So yeah, it's my fourth favourite, but that's not to take anything away from it, because each promotion is special in its own right. And to think that next season will be our 10th season in the Premier League is just something that you could have never ever imagined. I remember the first time we went up under, obviously, the Coyle promotion. I got my first console. Like, I'd never had a console before, but I twisted my dad's arm because I said, "Dad, we're going to be on FIFA. We're going to be in the Premier League on FIFA. I need a PlayStation 3." And I managed to twist his arm. I thought, it's a once in a lifetime. And now here, 2025, it's going to be our 10th year in the Premier League. It's something very, very special.
Excellent. I love it. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening to have a look back on that and to celebrate promotion to the Premier League. Listeners, we would love to hear your thoughts. If you're listening to this on our YouTube channel, please drop some comments in the comment section. Let us know what promotion means to you. Pick up on some of the things we've talked about tonight. What's your views? We always read them. We always like to interact with you, and we would like to hear what you're saying. While you're there, drop us a subscribe and a like, please. Turn on those notifications and make sure that you don't miss another episode. We're hoping if we can get through to the magic number by next season, we'll be able to start streaming these podcasts live, which is going to be, it's going to be easy for me from an editing perspective, purely from a selfish perspective. But yeah, just open up a lot more opportunities. So do please support us and spread the word where you can. Podcast listeners, again, podcasts are still live and well in 2025. Do please hit that subscribe button and carry on listening. We will bring you as much content as we can. I will speak to Dave Statman Roberts after this podcast. I've got all excited about promotion, realised it's actually Thursday and I've not done anything about a preview show for this weekend. I've got all excited. So let me have a speak to Statman Dave and we'll see what we can bring you in terms of some preview ahead of the game at the weekend. And we'll be back next week to see how closer, if at all, we are to a title for the mighty Clarets. Burnley fans, it's been a pleasure being with you this season. We got there in the end. This has been an incredible opportunity to get promoted, and we have taken it, and we will be living in the glory of Monday night for a long, long time. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we will be back next week. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time. The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonanever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.